All right, today we're cracking open the attacker's playbook. We're going to go way beyond the scary headlines and really break down the cybersecurity threat landscape, step by step. We'll look at how attackers get in, who they are, the tools they use, and the methodical plan they almost always follow. Okay, let's just dive right in. It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? I mean, we think of cybersecurity as this super complex battle of high-tech code and firewalls. But what if the real front line of defense isn't a piece of software, but just a single moment of human judgment? That's the question we're going to start with. And here's the number that really backs that up. A staggering 97% of all cyber attacks, they start with a technique called phishing. So it's not about an attacker trying to break down your digital door with brute force. It's about tricking you into opening it for them. So how does an attack actually begin? Seriously, forget what you've seen in the movies with crazy code flying across the screen. The very first move an attacker makes usually has a lot more to do with human psychology than it does with a single line of complex code. The professional term for this is social engineering, and honestly, it's basically the art of manipulation. Attackers are really good at exploiting our natural human tendencies, like our desire to be helpful or our fear of getting in trouble with the boss. They use that to trick us into giving up info or access. It's not about hacking the computer, it's about hacking the human. Now, what's really interesting here is just how wide-ranging these tactics are. Of course, you've got the high-tech stuff like phishing emails or someone impersonating your CEO, but you also have these surprisingly low-tech methods, like literally going through the trash, dumpster diving for old documents, or tailgating, which is just following someone through a secure door before it closes. The goal for all of them, though, is exactly the same: bypass the technology by exploiting people. Okay, so we've got a handle on how they try to get in, but who is actually behind the keyboard? Let's take a minute to meet the people we call threat actors. A threat actor is really just the official term for anyone who launches an attack. It's a super broad category, and their motivations are all over the map. It can range from simple curiosity and bragging rights to straight-up financial gain or even huge geopolitical strategies. And this chart just brilliantly illustrates the massive range we're talking about. On one end of the spectrum, you have Script Kiddies. These are basically amateurs using pre-made tools they just downloaded from the internet. But on the complete opposite end, you have nation-state actors. Now, these are highly trained, government-funded teams running these incredibly sophisticated, multi-year campaigns. They're often called Advanced Persistent Threats, or APTs. You can think of an APT like a slow, stealthy infiltration designed to steal a nation's military secrets, often without anyone knowing they were there for years. But here's a twist that might actually surprise you. Not all threats come from the outside. A whopping 58% of all data breaches are actually attributed to insiders. We're talking about employees, contractors, or partners who already have legitimate access to a company's systems. So once a threat actor has a target in mind, whether they're an insider or an outsider, they need the right tool for the job. And this brings us to their digital toolkit, which is basically a huge arsenal of malicious software. And the general term for all these digital weapons is malware, short for, you guessed it, malicious software. It's kind of the catch-all term for any piece of code that was built with bad intentions. And its job can be anything from quietly logging your keystrokes to steal passwords, all the way to hijacking your entire computer and holding it for ransom. And believe me, the arsenal is deep and it is diverse. We've got the classics, like viruses and worms, the infamous ransomware that you hear about all the time, and then some more specialized tools. You've got rootkits for hiding, spyware for watching, and even things called logic bombs that just sit there silently, waiting for a specific trigger to go off. Let's clarify a couple of the most common ones you'll run into. Okay, so this is a really common point of confusion. What is the actual difference between a virus and a worm? Well, the most crucial distinction is this. A virus is like a parasite. It needs a host file, like a Word document, and it needs a person to help it spread. You have to actually email that infected file to someone. A worm, on the other hand, is a hunter. It's totally self-sufficient. It can travel across a network all by itself, actively looking for new computers to infect. No user clicks required at all. And then there's the Trojan, named after, the legendary Trojan horse. And it works exactly the way it sounds. It's a malicious program that's disguised as something totally legitimate. So you download what you think is a free game or some useful little app, but hidden inside that code is something else that starts stealing your financial data. It gets you to lower your defenses and bring it right inside the gates yourself. So the attacker has their target, and they've chosen their weapon. Now what? Well, the most sophisticated attacks, they're not random at all. They follow a very clear, very methodical plan. You can almost think of it like a 5-act play for a digital heist. And here it is. This is the playbook. It always starts with reconnaissance. This is the digital version of casing a bank. They're looking up employee names on LinkedIn, identifying what kind of servers are being used, anything that gives them a map of the territory. Then they scan that territory, using tools to check for unlocked doors and known weaknesses. Once they find a weak spot, they gain access. That's the actual break-in. But they don't just grab what they want and run. Step 4 is crucial: maintaining access. They plant backdoors that let them come and go as they please. And finally, clearing tracks, where they meticulously delete logs and other files to erase any evidence they were ever there. So now that we understand the anatomy of an attack, right, from the initial social engineering hook to the final cover-up, how do we defend against it? Well, the answer is a really fascinating shift in perspective. We have to start thinking like the attacker. And this is the whole principle behind ethical hacking. It's about using the exact same tools, the same tricks, and the same techniques as a malicious actor, but for purely defensive purposes. The crucial difference, and it's a really big one, is that it's all done with the system owner's explicit permission. The goal is to find and fix the security holes before the bad guys do. And this line really just says it all. You can't just build walls around your data and hope they hold up. You have to actively test them, you have to probe them, and you have to try to break them down yourself to find the real weaknesses. You've got to anticipate their next move. And that's exactly why this field is so critical today. Organizations hire ethical hackers, sometimes called penetration testers, to run these simulated attacks. They might try to phish employees or crack passwords or find a security hole in a new app before it goes live for the public. It's a totally proactive defense. It's like a fire drill for a real cyber attack, and it's all designed to strengthen security and ultimately protect our data. So we'll end with this. We've just walked through an attacker's entire process, from that first deceptive email all the way to them clearing their tracks. So knowing their playbook, the real question is, how prepared are you to counter it? All right, today we're cracking open the